It's a money fight, I get you, and you want to make money. But at some point in time, if you keep telling us that you're taking boxing seriously and you want to be recognized as a big-time boxer / fighter, you're going to have to fight somebody closer to your age, who is a contender at the very least.
Fight that I couldn't believe, that was too insane and honestly just baffling to think would be a real fight in 2025, reminds you that combat sports are the craziest sports on the planet.
Full fight announcement, another circus act, another clown show. A fight between Jake Paul and Gervonta Tank Davis has been announced as an exhibition fight.
Stephen A. Smith ripped into the announcement of Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis, calling it nothing but a circus act. He admitted Jake Paul knows how to sell a fight and create hype, but said boxing deserves better than these sideshow events. Smith argued that Jake should fight real opponents that actually make sense, instead of chasing shock value. To him, this fight proves it's more about entertainment than real competition.
I've always been a fan of Jake because I think that what Jake tries to do for the sport of boxing, I think people don't realize the importance of him being able to promote for himself and not being reliant on the promoters who I believe has held the sport hostage. The only critique I've ever given Jake, I just want Jake to fight boxers. Like Nate Diaz, we know his reputation. We know the man can fight. We know in the octagon he could be something special. But we know you breathe on him, he starts bleeding.
It's a fair critique. And you know what? He should fight boxers. But then again, should he? Because I'll tell you why. If you're a human who can rake in $6 to $10 million fighting people that you know you're going to beat, and you want to build a resume and a record that's impressive with a good highlight reel, you got to be strategic about this shit. Jake's 25, 26. He's got so much time.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I get where you coming from. All I'm saying is, we don't know your skill set because you haven't been in there with anybody really skilled.
Analysts say Jake Paul's new fight is just another stunt in his circus career. They argue most of his matchups have no real logic or competitive balance, just made to grab headlines. Instead of facing opponents that actually fit his weight or style, Jake keeps picking weird, mismatched fights. Experts admit it entertains casual fans, but to real boxing people, it's a joke and not serious boxing.
Performance, Jake Paul won the fight. But yeah, that was that. This time, Jake Paul is to take on Tank Davis. Tank Davis, he was recently in the news for being arrested for a domestic violence incident involving one of his kids' mother. He was alleged to have slapped her about the place. The charges were later dropped, to be fair to him. But yeah, that was when he was last in the news. What is interesting is just a couple of months ago, Tank Davis was saying openly that he'd lost his passion for boxing and that he wanted time away from the sport. There was speculation that he might even retire, as he was experiencing extreme mental fatigue from boxing, depression, and there were mental health concerns over him. However, I guess the opportunity to earn a truck full of money, fighting a completely worthless exhibition fight against Jake Paul, was enough to make him change his mind about boxing. Funny that, isn't it? But you know what? I'm not even going to waste your time or mine critiquing this utter nonsense. Suffice to say that this so-called fight we're talking about is an exhibition, and it pits Jake Paul, who is a cruiserweight, by the way, weighs in excess of 200 pounds, and Tank Davis, who is, he was the WBA lightweight champion, who weighs in at about 135 pounds when he fights. So that's a disparity of some 65 pounds. In old money, that's about 4.5 stone. There's also a significant difference in height. Jake Paul is roughly 6'1", 2. Gervonta Davis is 5'5" at best. So, there's a height disparity there of some 8 inches.
Ring Magazine shocked fans by tweeting that Jake Paul will fight Gervonta Tank Davis on November 14th at State Farm Arena in Atlanta. It'll be an exhibition on Netflix, confirmed by Mike Coppinger. Originally, Paul tried to lock in a fight with Anthony Joshua, but talks collapsed over network issues. The catch? Jake's last fight was at 200 pounds, while Davis is a 135-pound champion. This bizarre size mismatch has fans arguing. Some call it pure entertainment. Others say it's a joke. Jake Paul, however, doesn't care. He's been forcing his own path in boxing, throwing around his money and using controversy to make headlines. Love him or hate him, he's managed to shake up the sport in ways few thought possible. This fight, which nobody believed would ever happen, shows how far Jake will go to push his wild agenda.
But again, if it makes dollars, it makes sense. And we've seen that Jake will kind of bounce in between doing these entertainment fights and then, trying to push toward his goal of ingraining himself in the sport of boxing, and kind of does both of them. So it's kind of a weird place to be, because he wants the respect of the boxing fans and the boxing hierarchy and hardcore boxing people, but at the same time, he'll gain some of that and then lose some of it. It's like a seesaw of his fights. Like one fight, and be like, okay, that's a real fight, or that's a real fighter. He'll go and he'll win the fight. Julio Cesar Chavez, real fighter, maybe past his prime, whatever, but Jake goes and wins that fight pretty easily, and then gets a lot of respect, gets a lot of the boxing hardcore love. And you have these talks about him fighting Anthony Joshua, and that was going to get even more respect. More people were like, that's fucking crazy. What are you doing? Myself included. That seemed like a massive risk, but a lot of people were like, okay, fair play. Anthony Joshua, that's a real heavyweight. Jake wants to fight him. He's a psycho, but fair play. And then you announce this one, and it's like, well, that's the same thing people have been saying about Jake for years, so it's a weird spot to be in for him for sure. But I talked about this not being the first choice, and I don't think it was, because Coppinger reports next that talks for Jake Paul to face Anthony Joshua collapsed over network issues. Now, we had all heard the talks, and they were pretty public, from Eddie Hearn, from Jake. Nakisa Badarian, Jake's manager, was over in the UK on, I think, Sky Sports, talking about the fight and saying how it was a real possibility and they were really starting to work on it. And now Mike Coppinger says that the talks for Jake and Joshua fell apart over broadcasting issue.
Jake Paul later confirmed the fight on Instagram, writing, "Size versus speed, power versus precision. One will rise and one will fall from Atlanta. Live on Netflix November 14th. His post sent social media buzzing and turned the exhibition into a global talking point. Even veteran trainer Teddy Atlas weighed in. Atlas admitted that no matter how much critics hate Jake, he deserves credit for forcing his way into big fights. According to him, Jake's rise isn't luck, it's persistence, money, and the guts to sacrifice comfort for attention. Atlas also pointed out that Jake has actually improved. He spent years training with real coaches, sparring pros, and learning how to survive in the ring. Purists might call him a clown, but Atlas says most of the hate ignores the truth. Jake has put in serious work. Many fans still dismiss him as just a YouTuber, but Atlas believes his journey proves how far he's invested to make himself a real player in boxing.
That I gave too much credit to Paul. Why? He's done a hell of a job to put himself in this position. He sold himself. He sold his dream. He took his dream. He took his idea. And he put it out there, and he made it happen. Give him credit for that. And he made it happen. And he took risk along the way. Yeah, he picked his spots. He's in the driver's seat. He gets to pick his spots. He's the one bringing the money. He's the one promoting. Yeah, he's the name. He made himself that, coming from where he came from, with all his followers and the whole thing, and just the uniqueness of what he was doing. But he has learned along the way. He's not a top guy yet. No, I don't know that he ever will be. He didn't have that amateur background and the things that you usually need to be a top guy. But he has improved. He is a work in progress. He is a guy that you got to give him credit that he's respected the sport. He went out there, he's worked hard at it, and he's gotten himself into this position. Having said all of that, this might be a step too far. Now, when I say it, I try to be responsible. I've been in this game 50 years, so I know where not to step, where you could twist an ankle, or worse, you could break a leg or fall down. When I say that with the understanding too that Joshua's coming off being knocked out.
At the end of the day, whether you see Jake Paul as a clown ruining boxing or a disruptor bringing new life to the sport, one thing is certain. This fight has the whole world talking. What do you think? Is this a real test or just another circus act? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more boxing drama and updates.